What's up, good people? How you doing this fine Wednesday afternoon? Got some Seahawks stuff to go over because the two most powerful people in the organization right now have said a lot of things. They came out at the Combine, doing their Combine pressers earlier today. This tweet is from yesterday. Brady Henderson saying that Carroll would speak at about 10 a.m. and John Schneider would speak at about 1 p.m. Both those pressers have come and gone, and Carroll had a lot to say. Schneider threw in a few things as well. So I wanted to cover what Carroll had to say in particular, because he said some things that are interesting, and he said some things that I like, and he also said some things that I really didn't like. So, look, it needs to be understood right now that words are just words. Actions speak louder than words. We're not going to really know what the offseason plan is for about 2 months. But nevertheless, words mean something more than nothing, right? And we can probably assume that a good portion of the Seahawks offseason plan is indicated by these words from Carroll and Schneider. So the combine action doesn't really start in terms of stuff that we as fans would be interested in watching until tomorrow. But this might be more telling about the future of this team than anything that we see in the combine. So I'm going to run through. I have some notes here from the two pressers. Schneider's was very short, so that'll just be kind of a coda at the end. Carroll said a lot of stuff. I'm going to go through it. If you haven't watched it yet, then I'll try to give as much context as I need to illustrate what is being said. But I do recommend that if you do have time, you go watch it yourself. You might even notice something that I didn't notice. So let's start with some of the stuff that I do like, because Carroll did say some things that I liked. And the first thing that he said that got my attention a little bit was about the defense. He said that he's been edging for some time now to make some adjustments to the defense, and that Darrell Taylor, the way he's talking about Darrell Taylor, he said that he's exactly what the Seahawks are seeking in defensive changes with Clint Hurtt as the new DC. And he says that, yes, they're going to look more like a 3-4 than at times in the past. By the way, shout out to Mass Temple in the Discord for curating all this stuff and really helping people who didn't have time to watch the whole thing, because I watched most of it, but I didn't watch the whole thing, really curating all this stuff to allow people to see it. Shout out to him. This is something that Carroll is talking about that I like. When you listen to him talk about Darrell Taylor and talking about the new defense, it sounds like we're doing it because we're trying to put Darrell Taylor in the forefront. It sounds like we're really trying to build a defense that Darrell Taylor is going to be able to be a star in. And I've said before, I think Darrell Taylor is a great fit for a hybrid defense because he can do all the things you need to do in a hybrid defense. He can be an outside linebacker in a 3-4, Sam in a 4-3, and I think he can play 5-tech or Leo in a 4-3. So with a hybrid defense, which is supposedly what we're going to be doing this year, I think the main reason why I'm for it is that it's good for Darrell Taylor, and it's also probably going to be good for Jamal Adams. And those are the two biggest things for this defense right now. So to hear Carroll say it, that we're going to do more 3-4 stuff this year, that Darrell Taylor is one of the reasons why we're doing this, that we think he's exactly what we're looking for, that stuff is really encouraging to me. So next, he talked a little bit about Eskridge. They expect him to be a big part of the offense in year 2. Now, that's a very reasonable expectation. Now, last year, Carroll did say that he expected LJ Collier to make a key contribution for the Seahawks on the defense, and he never played him, basically, so words don't mean a whole lot here, but Eskridge is clearly talented, and he's clearly somebody we expect something out of. Also said he will be part of the kick return game, which I'm okay with it, but it's definitely risky. I'm not going to argue it because he's got the talent to be very good in that role, but it's risky, right? They liked what they saw from him last year. He was just banged up. That's definitely true. And I do think that's something that needs to be said to some of the people who are already throwing the bust label on Dwayne Eskridge. You got to understand, dude took a serious concussion last year, completely derailed his rookie year. Next comments from Carroll were on Bobby Wagner, and believe it or not, I actually don't mind the way Carroll talked about Bobby. The quote was, "We expect to play with Bobby, we love Bobby, and that they hope to have Bobby back in 2022, but did not fully commit, and notes that this is the time of the year for hard decisions." I've said before that if this team brings Wagner back in 2022, then I'll be disappointed, but if they bring him back at his $20 million cap hit number in 2022, that's malpractice. This comment pretty clearly seems to indicate that Carroll is aware of that. He won't commit to bringing Bobby back. And to me, what that says is that he knows that Bobby, if he's going to come back, is going to have to come back on a reduced salary. And if he's not willing to reduce his salary by enough, he might have to go. So I actually think this is an encouraging thing. I like it. Okay, next, Carroll talked a little bit about Andy Dickerson, said that he had a clear impact on the offensive line down the stretch last year, which, I mean, there's definitely some truth to that, especially in the run blocking. You saw improvement on that offensive line. Some of it was because of the personnel. You had Phil Haynes and Jake Curhan, and they came in and mostly played pretty well, especially in the run blocking. Carroll described Dickerson as a young coach who has a strong rapport with players and will keep us tighter and more focused scheme-wise. That sounds all well and good, but it kind of, to me, flies in the face of what Carroll would go on to say, because here's the thing. If you're talking about scheme, when it comes to this offensive line, I don't know if we have players right now that are a good fit for this scheme, which would be okay if we were going to bring in new players, but we'll get to that in a second here. Carroll also said that Metcalf had surgery to fix a surgery that he had a while back, so I guess that's kind of interesting. It's not really anything to comment on there, but the fact that he had the surgery to fix a surgery that he had a while back is interesting, I guess. But also more interesting than that would be his comments on Rashad Penny and the running back room in general. He's hoping that the team will be able to bring Rashad Penny back in free agency. He thinks that his confidence is soaring and that Penny wants to be back in Seattle. But Carroll went on to say that he thinks it's going to be a challenge for Seattle to re-sign Penny because of how he ended the 2021 season. Penny's finally healthy, and it sounds like he's aware of the fact that Penny may demand more money than they're comfortable giving because of how he played down the stretch. And there is a line with Penny that I'm not really willing to cross, admittedly, but I don't know if this is the time to be drawing a line in the sand and refusing to cross it when you have a young running back with limited miles who is finally starting to really figure it out, it looks like. Because I think Penny could be even better in 2022 than he was at the end of 2021 if you start to not just run him up the gut on 90% of his carries. Also said that he expects Chris Carson to return for 2022, and the Carson-Penny combo is the combo he's been waiting for, which on paper is great. Carroll said that Carson's workouts are going well. Anytime you have neck surgery, it's obviously very intricate, so we've got to see how that works out. You know how much I've always loved Chris. I'd love to get them back. Them referring to Carson and Penny. I do find it interesting that he doesn't commit to definitely bringing Carson back when he's still under contract, but let's talk about it assuming he comes back. So, if you cut Chris Carson this offseason, you save about $3.5 million. It's not that hard as a starting running back in the NFL to be worth $3.5 million. If Chris Carson were to come back in 2022 and give you 10 games and 800 yards from scrimmage, he's probably worth the $3.5 million, because that's how you have to look at it. You can't look at it in terms of his $6.5 million cap hit. You have to look at it in terms of the potential savings if you cut him. And I don't think it's unreasonable to say that Carson can live up to the $3.5 million that he's effectively going to cost this season to keep. it just feels like it's going to end badly. I'm not looking for Carson to be a Derrick Henry. I'm not looking for him to play 17 games and have 2,000 yards from scrimmage and 20 touchdowns. I'm not looking for that. But it just, even if you bring him back and you're saying, okay, we just need you to play 10 games, give us 10 games, 800 yards, good efficiency, good blocking, and that'll be good enough. Like, that's within the realm of possibility. But God, it just feels like it's going to end with him getting carted off, doesn't it? Oh boy. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. Not going to be unreasonable for him to be worth the money, but it's not really about the money for me with Carson. It's about the fact that I just feel like it's going to end very badly. It's going to end the way Ricardo Lockett ended, if you guys remember that. He also made a brief comment about the Russell Wilson stuff, which I guess I would be willing to call this good news at this point with some caveats. I'll get more into that later. Regarding the Russell Wilson trade, he said, we have no intention of making any move there. By the way, Schneider kind of echoed that later. So basically, the team doesn't want to trade him. Wilson's recent comments indicated that he doesn't want to trade. So as far as I'm concerned, this is dead. Like, I don't even think it's worth talking about anymore. Maybe you could have argued that it was worth talking about a little bit, but there is no indication to me that there is anywhere near enough interest in trading him to actually trade him. So I guess that's probably good news at this point if we're really going to run it back, but take from it what you will. Carroll also said that they really hope to have Quandre Diggs back and said he'll be ready to play before training camp. Carroll says that's a top priority. We really want to get him back. Understandable, but not really my favorite. Not really what I would have in mind this offseason. I will say that Diggs is a great player, and I do think he will continue to be great, so at least you have that going for you, but hold that in the back pocket. Carroll also talked a little bit more about the defense, and this is some stuff that I like. We've been a little bit arrogant over the years with the way we do it. It's not that time anymore. He made it clear that the Seahawks' priority is to improve the pass rush, and idea behind scheme shift is to really accent the edge rushers. He added, we love Darrell Taylor, and he'll be all over it. So, as I've said before, I like the switch to the hybrid defense, and I really like that it seems to be done because of Darrell Taylor. I like the fact that it seems like we looked at Darrell Taylor and went, how can we get the most out of this guy because we think this guy's a future star? And they decided letting him play standing up as an outside 3-4 linebacker would get more out of him. And allowing him to play in this hybrid defense where sometimes he's going to have his hand in the dirt, sometimes he's going to come from the left, sometimes he's going to come from the right. They think that that's going to get the most out of him. And I like the fact that he addressed that they've been a little bit arrogant over the years with the way they do things on defense, because that's definitely true. And if they really are making this massive change to the defense, then that is an indication on some level that time is over. Now, I would say that I think there is a little bit of arrogance going on other areas of this team right now. I will get to that before this video is over. But I do like the fact that it seems like the reasons why we're changing the defense are they're logical. They make sense to me. Now, you do have to bring in the right players to do it properly. As I've said before, you can't just take all these players and say, okay, we're doing a 3-4 now. Get out there, do it. We need help. And I would hope that Carroll, if he's really not going to be arrogant about this, is going to realize that, hey, we need to bring in some guys. But with that comes a kind of inverse problem. And we'll get to that in a little bit here. In comments to reporters off the podium, Carroll says when teams call to ask about Wilson, Schneider tells them Wilson is not available. Standard response is, we are not shopping the quarterback. So the trade of Wilson seems less on the table than it even was last year, which is kind of funny because we had a bad year and Wilson struggled a lot compared to how he did in 2020. In 2020, he had 40 touchdowns. 2021, it was, I mean, the numbers are still pretty good, but he was not nearly as good. And it seemed like things were getting really rocky. So it kind of, there are two ways to look at this to me. Either there was always kind of an understanding that 2021 could be a not so great year, or it's just the fact that Wilson is not willing to actually demand things, which there's a little bit of a downside there as well, which, well, hold that in your back of your brain for a second. Carroll says the Seahawks also hope to re-sign backup quarterback Geno Smith. He was asked about the DUI thing, but he basically blew it off. So he basically says, we want to bring Geno Smith back. I don't mind Geno Smith. I think he played fine last year, all things considered. I think that if he had to play in 2022 and he got to play, average to below average opponents, he would probably win some games. I think a big thing that put people against him in 2021 was the fact that most of the games he played against good teams. He came off the bench cold against a team that would go on to win the Super Bowl, and he actually played really well in that game, by the way. He played against the Steelers on the road. The Steelers made the playoffs, played against the Saints. The Saints didn't make the playoffs, but at that point in the season, they were one of the better teams in the NFC. That was a really good Saints team at that point in time. So I don't mind Geno Smith, the player. I think that's a reasonable signing. The only guy I think you could get who's about the price range of Geno, who is better than Geno, would be Colt McCoy. But it does kind of disturb me that Carroll doesn't care about Geno going 96 miles an hour on the highway, letting it all hang out like that. That's a little weird. I know players make mistakes, but that's a mistake you don't need to be making as a player who makes millions of dollars. And that kind of starts to segue into some of the stuff I'm not super enthusiastic about. Carroll says no real philosophical change in how team will approach offseason after 7-10 record. There's always an immediate urgency, but we have to have the mentality for the long haul also. So this is going to start to get into some of the stuff that Carroll said that I really don't like. Why do you care about the long haul, dude? You are the oldest coach in the league. Do you think you're going to be here in 10 years? Do you think you're going to even be here in 5 years? Probably not. And I think that if he thinks that he is, he's delusional. And that's a problem. Like his contract, I think his contract has, 4 more years in it. I would be floored if he's the coach past 2025. Just because of the age. But even without the age, this team has not seen big results in a while. Where's the fact that he doesn't feel urgency to produce big results, even at the cost of the future, it kind of makes you wonder if either A, he's delusional, or B, he has some sort of assurance from ownership that, hey, it doesn't really matter what you do, you're not going to lose your job. And that's really discouraging to me, and that's going to also lead into some of the things that he said specifically about the offseason plan that I didn't like. Carroll also said that Jody Allen did not demand changes in the postseason meetings, which, what else is he going to say, of course, but looking at the way Pete is talking about things, it's believable, and it may be construed as discouraging for some people that Jody Allen did not demand anything. Not surprising, I guess, but that may indicate why Carroll says they're going to do some of the things they're going to do. So he also briefly touched on Jamal Adams. He says the recovery is going well. He sounds great, chomping at the bit. He wants to get going right now. Felt like he left too much out there. Attitude is great. Communicated with him on Monday. Said that the last couple of off seasons for Jamal have not really been conducive to integrating him into the defense the way they wanted to, because he held out last year. The year before that, it was the COVID off season. They didn't have enough time to do everything they wanted to do with Jamal, and he said this time it's going to be different. So I think that's encouraging. I still think Jamal can be a great player for us. I still believe in him. I still think he can be one of the best safeties in the league, if not the best. But we need those injuries to clear up, and then we need to see how this defense plans on using him. So I like that, and that's going to be one of the few things left that I haven't gone over that Carroll said that I liked. He was asked about the offensive line, and Carroll said, we like our guys, and we want to get our guys back, and continuity would be big. And he didn't just say that about Dwayne Brown, although he did say that bringing back Dwayne Brown is a priority, and we already kind of knew that was the thinking. He also said Dwayne Brown would be open to a one-year deal, which is expected, but he also said it in regards to Ethan Posick. I don't mind Ethan Posick. I think he's a great backup, probably a low-end starter in the NFL. But if your plan for 2022 is to bet everything on continuity and just bring everybody back on that offensive line, that is a deep disappointment. And Carroll went on to say that the Seahawks want to re-sign Diggs, DJ Reed, Sidney Jones, which I'm for, Dwayne Brown, which is at this point defensible, Geno Smith, whatever, Ethan Posick, okay, as a backup, and Rashad Penny, which I'm also on board with. But look at that list that I just read off. Diggs, Reed, Jones, Brown, Smith, Posick, Penny. That's quite a bit of money. So, are you bringing Ethan Posick back with the plan to start him? That's kind of what it sounds like to me. And that's when I start to think, wait a minute, what are we doing here? So, I understand that Posick is not as bad as some people think. I absolutely believe that. I don't think he's one of the worst players in the league like some people do. But there are centers out there that are clearly better than him, that are available in free agency. You have money. You have the ability to create a lot more money. And you're just going to settle for that? And what's more, you're going to re-sign as many players as possible from the 2021 team? I mean, I've already talked about this, but the 2021 team was bad. And some people, when I said that a couple days ago in a video, tried to make excuses for it. No, that team was terrible. 3-8. They were 3-8 at one point, with one of their wins coming against Jacksonville. And then they got hot at the end to make it look slightly better. If anything, they're worse than their record. Yeah, I know. If Wilson didn't get hurt, they probably would have won like 9 or 10 games. But Wilson did get hurt, and they did only win 7 games. So that's the way things go sometimes. A good team, a well-coached team, finds ways to win games anyway. And we had a couple of opportunities to find a way to win a game without our star quarterback, and it didn't happen. So I don't understand the fascination with bringing back so much stuff from 2021 when 2021 was such a disappointing and failed season. And here's the big thing that came out of this press conference that I really don't like. Listening to Carroll talk, it really kind of sounds like the plan is to bring back everybody on offense from 2021 except maybe tight end. And if we don't bring back Everett and Disley, we're not going to upgrade there necessarily. We're probably going to get somebody about equivalent. But Brown back, Posick back, if he's really going to start, then that's keeping everything the same. And then I'm not seeing any indication that we're going to aggressively attack things like guard or right tackle. Obviously, the receiver is going to stay the same, and that's fine. But if we're not going to move Wilson, then he's going to be back. If we're really going to bring back Carson and Penny, this offense was not very good last year. And I'm not saying continuity is worthless. But after what happened last season, how can you think it's a good idea to just say, no, we don't need any personnel upgrades on this offense. Let's just run it all back. 16th in the league or whatever we ranked on offense by the end of the season, yeah, that's good enough. So to me, that is the most discouraging thing to come out of this press conference from Carroll. Sounds like he wants to spend all the money on retaining the team, building the defense, and just let the offense kind of hang. Also said that his talks with Jody Allen were about the next 3 to 5 years, at least through end of his contract. Says he went to Allen saying defensive coaches had to change. Also, what else would he say? But it's very possibly true. I don't think he would admit that Jody Allen held a gun to his head and forced him to fire Norton, but it's listening to what Carroll is saying, it's believable that may be the case. He also talked about the delineation of roles in the defensive staff. Sean Desai will scheme coverages with Carl Scott. and Clint Hurt will coordinate it all, focusing on improving the pass defense from the defensive front. That all sounds pretty good to me. That pretty much sounds like what I expected. You're going to have Desai and Scott putting together game plans during the week, and then Clint Hurt coordinates it and focuses on the pass rush. I think that has a chance of working. We'll see if the too many cooks thing does happen. That's most of the stuff that Carroll had to say in terms of the defensive roles on the coaching staff. He did throw in that Desai likes Ryan Neal, who is a free agent, and Marquise Blair, who is a potential cut candidate, but there aren't big savings, so you're probably going to bring him back. So if that's true, that's encouraging. I like that, because those are two guys who we need to figure out how to get something out of them. Blair has given us very little these last 3 years. Neal, there's something there, but it's not amazing. But I feel like that if you get him on the field 15 times a game as a dime corner, that's pretty good. So hopefully we can do something like that. Other than that, most of the other comments Carroll made were about Wilson, about how we understand that teams are going to try to make offers for him, but we're not interested in trading him. No offer has come even close to being interesting to the Seahawks, and basically just indicating that we're not going to be moving him, which I think that's a good thing. Let me emphasize that. I do. But I'll say this. If we're really just going to bring everything back on the offense, like we're really just going to bring back the same offensive line, same receivers, same running backs, and equivalents at tight end or the same tight ends, I would almost respect it more if we did actually say, okay, yeah, we're going to trade Wilson. Not because I think it would help, but at least you would be changing something significant. You would be like, okay, what we're doing is not really working because we haven't made a deep run in 7 years. Let's do something different. But no, they just kind of want to do all the same stuff and cross their fingers on continuity. Okay, and then you get to Schneider's comments. He didn't say a whole lot. He also said we're not going to move Wilson right now. He said that we don't know if we're going to use the franchise tag yet. If we do, it would probably be Diggs, and it would probably be a temporary thing while we try to get him locked up. The thing that Schneider said that really puts a bug up my ass. Schneider said the Seahawks will likely not use any void years this year or redo deals to push cap into future. Says they want to stay a pay-as-you-go team as much as possible. Okay, I is winning, like I read a comment like this and I think we don't care if we win or not. The Super Bowls are not the priority here, I guess, because you're looking at all these teams that are competing. A vast majority of them are using void years, and some of them are using them a lot. We even did it last year some, because we realized that's what it took to compete, and we still didn't compete. But when I hear this, what I hear is we don't really care about winning the Super Bowl. All we care about is winning 10 games so we can keep our stadium filled for home games. We care about making the playoffs so we can sell our fan base on the fact that we're almost to the top. We don't care if we never win a Super Bowl again. That's honestly what I hear when I see this. And I just look at some of these other teams, like what the Packers are doing right now, what the Cowboys are doing right now, even a team like the Titans, they're doing right now. How are we going to keep up if we don't use void years or redo deals to push cap into the future? That would work if we had the best coaches in the league and we could out-scheme everybody. We didn't need the best players. We didn't need to spend all the money because we had so much knowledge, so much brilliance in this coaching staff that they could overcome that. But we don't. We don't. When was the last time we out-coached anybody? Feels like it's been a while, huh? Seriously, when was the last time we out-coached anybody? No, this team needs to win with talent. In 2013, when we won the Super Bowl, we did it because we had more talent than everybody else. And we had a scheme that allowed that talent to shine. So why Carroll and Schneider don't seem to understand the need to bring in more talented players, I don't get. I don't understand it. It boggles my mind. I that combined with what Carroll said about wanting to bring back so many guys from the team last year, it really makes you feel like there's not enough urgency with this front office. And of all the things I didn't like hearing, that is really bad. And it's also, quite honestly, very damning for those two to me. You guys know that I spent a lot of the season last year and the early part of this offseason saying that I think it's time to blow it up. We didn't. We're running it back. And I'm not seeing anything from Pete Carroll or John Schneider that indicates they've learned their lesson. It's like they think last year was a fluke. They want us as fans to just forget that it happened. They want us to show up to the home games next year with hundreds of dollars in our wallet to buy merchandise and food and pay for parking and pay hundreds of dollars for tickets and just hope that, hey, forget about that terrible team we had last year. It didn't happen. It was an illusion, okay? It was a fluke. It was an accident. It wasn't our fault. That's all I hear when I read comments like, oh, yeah, we're going to try to bring as many people back as possible from the 2021 team. Bringing back some of those guys is defensible, but if you're not willing to make some difficult decisions, and hopefully we will make some difficult decisions when it comes to guys like Bobby Wagner and Jason Myers, I don't think Myers is a difficult decision, but whatever, then there's not going to be enough money left over to make this team better from a personnel sense. Look, continuity is good, but looking at the offensive line, just focus on the offensive line. You're hoping that your best tackle and your best guard don't fall off a cliff because of age. You're hoping that Dwayne Brown and Gabe Jackson can fight off Father Time for one more year. You're hoping that Jake Curhan can take a leap to the next level and become a decent to good starter in 2022. You're hoping that Posick can stay healthy, which is something he's struggled to do his whole career. And you're also hoping that Damian Lewis either magically becomes much swifter of foot or that you can move him back to right guard, which we'll see if we end up doing that. I think we'd be complete morons to not move him back to right guard, but who knows? The ceiling on that offensive line, even if everything works out, is low. Like, not top 10 in the NFL. Like we're hoping for a top 15 offensive line if we're really going to run all this stuff back. And I get it. We got to spend on this defense. We need a nose tackle, might need another defensive end, and I'd say we need probably two outside linebackers, including one stud. But it sounds like we're just going to ignore the offense again, and this is not the offseason to be doing that. We'll know more in a couple weeks, and we'll know everything we need to know in a couple of months. But these comments did not fill me with a ton of encouragement on that front. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Let me know what you guys think. There was some stuff he said that I dug about the defense, but the offense feels like it's going to get left behind again, and I'm not on that wagon. All right, see you guys later. Go Hawks.